Now, the Philippines is set to lead ASEAN in 2026, taking on the chairmanship at a time when regional unity, competitiveness, and credibility are under strain. President Marcos accepted the gavel at the ASEAN Summit in Kuala Lumpur, vowing to navigate our future together with a focus on peace, prosperity, and people. Joining us live from Beijing is Anna Rosario Malindog-Uy, geopolitical and economic analyst and vice president for external affairs at the ASEAN Century Philippines Strategic Studies Institute. She's currently pursuing her doctoral degree in economics at the Peking University, and she joins us to talk about what the ASEAN chairmanship means for the Philippines. Hi, Anna. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and good morning to you and to our viewers. Thank you so much.
Okay, Anna, let's talk about the significance and the timing of this chairmanship. What does this mean for the Philippines politically, economically, and strategically?
Okay, that's a very good question, I think, because, politically, if you really look at the ASEAN chairmanship of the Philippines next year in 2026, politically, it is an opportunity to reclaim regional leadership and diplomatic credibility for the Philippines. And I think if the Philippines would want to pursue that kind of line, it has to emphasize buzzwords or what you call themes like ASEAN unity, ASEAN centrality, digital transformation, climate resilience, and inclusive growth. That is this is politically speaking. And also, this is an opportunity for the Philippines as an ASEAN chair in next year to what you call project its soft power. And this means this means diplomacy in every possible way. And this is also the opportunity for the Philippines to what you call rehabilitate, or to have that opportunity to have a diplomatic rehabilitation, precisely because if you really look at the Marcos Jr. administration, vis-a-vis our ASEAN counterparts and even beyond ASEAN, the way the Philippines being looked at is it's more focused when you talk about the securitization of its foreign policy. So in a way, politically speaking, next year Manila would have the opportunity to project to the ASEAN membership and beyond that, it is not like that, hopefully. And when you talk about the economic dimension of its chairmanship next year, I think two important things that the Manila should focus on is championing first and foremost the newly signed CAFTA, or the China ASEAN Free Trade Agreement 3.0, and also the implementation of RCEP, or the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. How they gonna do that? One thing that they can do is probably focus more on greater facilitation of foreign direct investment, and I think more focus on intra-trade regional integration, inter-trade meaning within ASEAN, and of course what you call regional integration that would involve ASEAN partners, like for example China, because we have the CAFTA.
Yeah.
So that is very
okay, Anna,
important.
I want to jump right in there. You mentioned a lot of great points, but before we get to that, as the Philippines pursues leadership in the ASEAN with this role and diplomatic credibility, can you give us some perspective? How would you describe the current reputation of the Philippines right now in the ASEAN and in the broader international community, especially given all the noise as we know it back here at home? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a very important question, I think, because from what I know and from my conversation with ASEAN counterparts, the way the Philippines is being viewed by ASEAN member states and even beyond is that it is like an extension of Washington. It's an extension of Washington when you talk about Washington or the United States strategic interest in the Indo-Pacific region, especially that it is very much, has a conflicting relationship with China over the South China Sea. So this is actually the challenge of Manila when it assumed chairmanship in 2026, especially when you talk about security issues. The challenge actually for the Philippines is to have a balance dynamics when you talk about security. It has to navigate what you call balancing the narrative of deterrence and dialogue, and also the chairmanship should go beyond the discussion on the maritime dispute.
Yeah, this comes
that it is a balancer.
Yeah, this comes amidst the intensifying rivalry between the superpowers, the United States and China. Anna, we lean on the United States for defense, but when it comes to trade, Washington hasn't exactly been friendly to us. Where does that leave the Philippines right now?
Oh, well, the Philippines is really now in a what you call strategic dilemma. It needs the United States for its defense and security architecture vis-a-vis China and vis-a-vis the region. But on the other hand, we have to recognize that we need China when you talk about economic development and economic prosperity, because we need the market of China, we need investment from China, we need digital and green economy, and China is leading in these areas when you talk about economics. Now, so given that we are in such a thing as a strategic dilemma, but one thing that we have to remember, and even you can see it, and you can have a lot of example in among ASEAN member states, that the Philippines, it's not necessarily a choice between China and actually the United States. It is more about being strategic, that when you do your development plans, when you pursue strategy economically, security, and political wise vis-a-vis the region and vis-a-vis the world, you have to anchor it in what you call national interests. And what are the national interests of the Philippines? First, you preserve your sovereignty, you preserve your strategic autonomy, you preserve your independence, and what? Economic development and prosperity and peace. These are the national interests of the Philippines. So if our strategy would be anchored on this, we will be guided accordingly. So we don't need to choose, because we need, what I can see is really we need both. We need China for economic, we need the United States to a greater extent, but calibrated when you talk about our security. And on the other hand, we have to diversify partnership with other majors, middle powers in the region, like for example, Australia, Japan, South Korea. That's why we're part of RCEP. So this is supposed to be the strategy. But
Yeah.
the problem with the Marcos administration is from the very outset or the very onset, his foreign policy was already leaning towards the United States. And you have a lot of manifestation of that. You have the EDCA sites, which were added, and you have Balikat and Ersik sites. And I think this is the challenge of the Marcos administration. He needs to recalibrate his foreign policy, that it would reflect that, the Philippines can be a game shaper, and actually the chairmanship is the pivotal moment for us, that we can be a credible regional actor advancing our national interests through collective diplomacy and reinforcing ASEAN's role as a nucleus of peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region, in Southeast Asia, and pushing for what you call ASEAN centrality, that amidst all the challenges in Southeast Asia, ASEAN is the center and the Philippines can contribute to that. This is
Yeah.
very important
Okay.
when we assume ASEAN chairmanship.
Okay, Anna, how can we use this leadership role to leverage, to get new foreign investments within ASEAN as the trade dynamics shift around the world?
Yes, this is a challenging question for the Philippines at the moment, given the so many domestic problems that we have. I really want to emphasize on this, because when you talk about attracting foreign direct investment, there are foreign investor would look at the domestic situation of a country, and the Philippines is facing a lot of domestic challenges. You have a level of political instability in the country. We know that, everyone knows that in the world. You have the demonstration, they have the political factions and feuds between political families, the Marcos side and the Duterte side. This is to some extent level of political instability. And another very important factor is massive corruption in government. This is not only known in the Philippines, it is known across the region and across the world. So I think this is a challenge for the Marcos Jr. administration, not only for the country, but to project that at ASEAN, in next year, assuming ASEAN chairmanship, you will be able to address their specific issues. And this
Yeah.
is very important when you talk about foreign direct investment. I'm not even talking about economic factors, like for example inflation, very high electricity, cost of living, and all of this, because these are factors that would affect in terms of our attractiveness to foreign investors.
Yeah.
So this is important. These are important issues, and these are not joke. I think if we
Trust.
want to
Yeah.
focus on our economy, yeah.
Yeah, trust is capital. Anna, just really quickly, we don't have that much time. Can you talk to
Yeah.
us about how much credibility the Philippines brings into this chairmanship, given the ongoing governance and corruption challenges? I mean, we want to attract foreign direct investments, but we also need to get our house in order. How much credibility do we have coming into hosting ASEAN in 2026?
We have a little bit of challenging credibility as far as ASEAN is concerned, and of course even beyond ASEAN, because of the so many domestic problems that we're facing. And I think that is the challenge. How you gonna present yourself as the chairman of ASEAN next year, that you will reclaim your some kind of image, because the image really of the Marcos Jr. administration politically, diplomatically, and even foreign policy-wise is to a certain extent not so good. That is one thing that I can say. I'm very much in touch with the region and our ASEAN counterparts. So I think this is something that Manila should work on before next year.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, we all have a lot to work on to help improve the image of our country. Anna, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you so much, Mikey, and have a good day.